Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn and this is a video for my patrons. It is a marketing plan video and I'm talking about my Spear of Destiny Kickstarter. But of course, all these ideas can be useful for whenever you're launching, whatever you're launching. And again, this is fiction, but most of these are relevant for non-fiction. So I hope this gives you lots of ideas. As I record this, the campaign is still going, but I wanted to get this out there so you can watch it in practice. So let's get into the tips. And the first one is to start early. First of all, do a short link for redirection. So you will have heard me say on the podcast, jfpenn.com/destiny. Now, that is not a landing page, it is a redirection. Now, I use pretty links on WordPress, but there are other redirection ways to do it depending on whatever platform you use. But the fact is that the Kickstarter link is very long. If you're doing a book launch to Amazon, it's easier to have a short link. And then what you can do with that link is just redirect it later. So set that up as early as you can. You can send people to a landing page first and then just change that along the way. But what that means is because it's evergreen, it's going out on podcast episodes and emails and all of that, when you redirect it later to whatever you want to promote, that can be really useful. So I think redirection links are just super good and you should do them for everything. Then the next thing is, and again, this is true for fiction or non-fiction, is to share your research process along the way, whatever you are doing. And I obviously share pictures of my travels. That's me in Washington, DC. And that is a picture of the Spear of Destiny from Vienna a few months back. And so even if I don't know what I'm writing, so when I was in Washington, I didn't know what I was going to turn that into, but I knew I would use it for something, and that was those pictures I shared on Instagram originally. And what this means is, you can use the content on social media, you can use the content in your email newsletters, if you're reading books on it, you don't have to be traveling. Whatever it is, involve people in your process. And then over time, people will be like, oh yeah, I remember you went to Washington, or oh yes, I really enjoyed your pictures from Vienna, and then they're more likely to want to be involved with the book launch. This is a very long, this is a long-term approach to marketing, which is how I've always done it, which is just to share the journey and hope to pick up a few people along the way. And you are evidence of that, my patrons. Many of you have been following me and listening to the show for many years. So that kind of does give you an idea, hopefully, for what you could do with your books, is that the launch, it is this spike period, but you need to spend a lot of time beforehand building up relationships. The other thing you'll need to do if you are trying to launch everything at once, like you do with a Kickstarter, is to do things like the audiobook, because the audiobook will take much longer than everything else, because of course you can only do it once you've finished the book. So I wanted to do the audiobook at the same time for Spear of Destiny. As it's turned out, I delayed the launch already. I could have launched this in May. But I'm launching it in June 2024 because I was waiting for my audiobook narrator to be more ready to do the audio snippet, which is on the sales page. But as it's turned out, it's delayed anyway, so that's quite annoying. I am still waiting. But yes, if you are working with other human beings, you're going to need to organise that in advance. I also wrote a stretch goal story, De-Extinction of the Nephilim, and there is another video on how I did the cover for that, the AI images for the cover. But I wanted to do that for a stretch goal. It's a story I've had in my mind for ages. If I don't reach that stretch goal, then I will publish it anyway. Obviously, I'll publish it in the future. But waiting actually did enable me to do a lot more of the marketing in advance, but it has also been quite frustrating because I really want to get on with it. Now I am getting on with it, but yes, so if you are doing anything with humans, make sure you do that in advance. And this is another example of that, which is to get proof copies of all your editions as soon as possible. So you will need to check the quality, you'll need to do any final proofreading. You also, so for example, we found that one of the images, the photo pages in the special edition was labelled the wrong way, so I had to get that fixed. You also need to, if you're doing Kickstarter, you need to get the final book price and the shipping costs. And until you have uploaded the book, and so they have the weight and the size, then you don't get the shipping. And if you're doing a Kickstarter, you have to put the shipping into the campaign. So, and you'll also want to do images. So you want to do your photo shoots and do your ads, whatever you're doing. So we did this over a month ago, I guess 6 weeks ago now, because the custom printing as well, this is with Book Vault in the UK, the custom printing, it's not just an overnight thing. It can take 2 weeks to get the custom print done. So it took me 2 weeks to get the original custom print proof, and then we had to make some adjustments, and then I got another one. So you must allow more time. And I feel like as indie authors, we are so used to finishing digital editions like an ebook, and you can finish an ebook, edit it and upload it and have it selling the same day, and then you can email and that's the launch. But this is a much more involved process, I guess, on the way to being more like traditional publishing. So I, as ever, have involved AI a lot in my launch, both ChatGPT and Claude.ai. And again, as I record this, it is June 2024. So it was kind of April, May 2024 when I did a lot of this. This is one of the things I recommend that we do now. And it's interesting, my husband's doing an MBA and they were talking about doing a pre-mortem. And I was like, oh, this is a great idea. So a pre-mortem is, instead of a post-mortem, which you do after death or at the end of a project, a pre-mortem is doing a sort of analysis before your project on why will your launch fail. Now, some sort of positive thinking people won't like this. They'll be like, oh, why would you think about failure beforehand? Well, the reason is to avoid failure. So here's the prompt that you can use. And if you're not doing a Kickstarter, you can just do this for a book launch. So my prompt was, can you please act as a Kickstarter expert and strategist? I'd like to conduct a pre-mortem on my Kickstarter campaign. And I gave it the link. What are some things I should consider? Now, it wasn't able to actually access the link because it was before launch. But it doesn't really matter because it gave me all the details. I could have sort of copied and pasted the whole page in as a prompt, but to be honest, it's going to be similar regardless. You could have said, please act as a book launch specialist, whatever. The point is to think about what could go wrong beforehand, and these are actually really good. So first of all, we'll just go through a few of these. The campaign goal. Every person I've seen fail in a campaign so far, people I know, is that they've put their campaign goal at too high a level. And it's just been an inappropriate level for perhaps where they are. It's been the first campaign, or it's just not been an appropriate thing to get funded. So that campaign goal is so important. And I put mine down at the last minute, down to £1,000. I did have it at 5,000, which I would have made, but I wanted to fund. And so there are no rules as to what number. Some people put $500, $200, and then you're going to hit it, hopefully. A good reward structure in terms of, and I'll go into this in a minute, in terms of rewards at different price points. Engaging an audience. If you fail to engage your audience, you're not going to fund. Insufficient marketing. This is super important for any kind of launch, and what many authors miss with their launch, wherever they're doing it. Project updates or poor communication. This is important with Kickstarter. A low quality video or an unclear campaign page. So you do have to work pretty hard on that landing page for Kickstarter, but also if you're doing other launches, this will help too. Unrealistic timelines can help you fail. Competitor analysis. I haven't really done this for my Kickstarter because I already have an audience, but it's certainly something to consider. And then poor financial planning can definitely sink a launch. You can do a Kickstarter, you can fully fund, you can make loads of money and still fail because you're not making a profit. So you do need to do all of that financial planning. And then, of course, all the shippings and all of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to include this because doing a pre-mortem on anything will really help. And you can now use the tools like ChatGPT has browsing now. The 4.0, which is for Omni as I record this, it's available even on the free tier. It can give you so much help. So definitely think about doing this for your book. So this is more about the campaign, which is being organised and thorough. So here are the levels that I have. And if you're doing a book Kickstarter, which most of us will be, then most of these levels will be about the book. So the ebook, the audiobook, the unsigned paperback, the large print. Now, not many people buy the large print, but I think it's really important for accessibility. I know a lot of people who want to still read print, but don't want to wear reading glasses. And so large print I think is important, but I know it's an extra cost if you don't want to do that. The signed limited edition hardback, that's the special edition with the foil and the photos and the ribbon and all of that. Then I've got a bundle, which is like the whole series. Then the Discovery Writing Webinar bundle, which includes all the books too. But what I've also done is include the webinar as an add-on. So if you wanted to just join me for the Discovery Writing Webinar, you could buy the ebook, which is just £5, and then add on the webinar. And that would be cheaper than the bundle. So you wouldn't have to get the whole thing. So having these different levels, and of course, if you don't have an audience of authors like I do, then you wouldn't necessarily offer a webinar, but it is good to have these higher levels. What I also did this time, which was different, is I set up the pre-order on the other sites because some people will never ever buy on Kickstarter. And I kind of I didn't do this last time. The last two Kickstarters for Pilgrimage and Writing the Shadow, I did not set up the books beforehand because I wanted to drive people only to Kickstarter. But what I find with my fiction audience is some of them are very, very set in their ways and they want to just buy on Kindle, for example. So I put up bookstoread.com/Spear of Destiny, set the ebook up on all the platforms, not the other formats, but certainly the ebook. And again, I've been doing this for over a decade as a fiction author, I guess 13 years as a fiction author. And so I've been training my readers to do this for a long time. So it's not that surprising. So yes, I did set that up. It is available and some people are pre-ordering it for September. So they're going to get it like 2 months later as if they wait. But for some people, that's fine. Also, the other thing to do early is to start warming up social media. So if you've been quieter for a while, and I definitely was for a while quieter, you need to get more active. You cannot go from 0 to buy my book on social media. Just not a good idea. So the main idea is to, if you know you've got a launch in a couple of months' time, just start warming up your social, like start posting more often, start being a human online, and so that when you start posting about your book launch, people won't just look away, that they know you've been, I guess, participating in the community. The other thing to do specifically for Kickstarter is to share the preview and ask for feedback. And many of you, my patrons, did give me feedback, for which I am very grateful. This is so interesting. We have blind spots. We all have blind spots. And also we have self-doubt. I have massive self-doubt about my fiction. I don't know why, it's just a lot more personal, I feel, than the kind of self-helpy stuff. And so I didn't put these higher levels. So I didn't put the everything bundle, which was suggested by a patron. I also included my ARC readers, my Penn friends, and also some other friends. But I added these two tiers, the everything bundle, which is the print books, the webinar, the ebooks, the audiobooks, like just everything. And then I also included the first draft. I have it here. So this is my manuscript. This is actually it. And I always, I finish the book on Scrivener, I print it out, and then I hand edit. And I keep them. I mean, I've got boxes and boxes of these manuscripts, and so I was thinking, what could I do at a much higher level? So I decided to sell the manuscript, and I didn't think it would sell. It sold within the first 24 hours, which is kind of crazy. And I decided I wasn't going to do consulting as part of this launch, but I decided that I think I should include a consulting session with that first draft manuscript. So hopefully that will give you some ideas. It is amazing what people want from us, and we have to consider that and not doubt ourselves. Now, if nobody had bought it, it would have been fine, but it's nice to have this much higher level, which makes the lower levels look better value as such. I also added more images to the page, including AI images, which I was very doubtful about. And thanks to Andrea in Germany, who said, you need to put images on. And I was like, oh, I don't want to put AI images. And then I just did and it does, it looks great. So I definitely added more images because of the feedback. I also, people picked up some issues with the wording and things, and I changed around some of the order of the stretch goals. So sharing that preview and asking for feedback is so important. In a way, it's a bit like working with an editor before you publish your manuscript, which again, I always do. I know many people don't, but for me, I want someone else's eyes on my work. And yeah, so I think having other people look at this and give you feedback is a really good idea. So the other thing you can do on Kickstarter, which I think you really should do, is use custom links. So you can see here, the custom links are on, as I'm looking at this, on the left-hand side. And you can see BookBub ad. I haven't actually done a BookBub ad yet. As I record this, I might not do it at all. Pinterest ad, haven't done that either. TCP is the Creative Penn Facebook paid ads, the Creative Penn Facebook. The project preview is the people who saw the preview, and basically what this does is links the referrer to the percentage of pledges. You can see that on the other side. So the top one there is email. So 84 pledges came from email, and that is the initial email that goes out. So when you sign up early for a pre-launch of someone's Kickstarter, that is the email, and look how big it is compared to the others. And again, I'm only less than a week into the campaign, and the top is always that pre-launch list. So that's why you want to set up your Kickstarter early and drive as much traffic to that pre-launch page as possible, because that's going to be a big chunk of your sales. Then Patreon, thank you. You are second. My patrons are second. But again, it's never going to be exact, because many of you would have signed up for the pre-launch. So there'll be a mix there. You can see there's quite a lot of Kickstarter ones. So advanced discovery, the Kickstarter homepage, the discovery category, and then sort of looking down there, the JF Penn email newsletter has a few, the Creative Penn email, Facebook, DuckDuckGo.com, which is hilarious. DuckDuckGo is a search engine. So this is, again, a snapshot. I will look at it again towards the end. I have just today set up some Facebook ads, which I'll talk about in a bit. But there are some, it's just really good to measure where people come from, because the next time you do one, it can help you decide what to focus on. And these you just set up in the back end of Kickstarter. Then scheduling in advance. This is important whatever you're doing. I mean, just in general, I prepare and schedule lots of things. I use buffer.com for social media, but there are lots and lots of tools you can use. Essentially, prepare things in advance, schedule them, and then you don't have to every day, if you're not in the mood or tired or whatever, then you know it's just going to run out. I did interviews early. I did special audios early. I made my videos weeks ago. Use a variety of content. So some might be images, some might be content marketing, some might be research, some might be book images. And if you schedule a lot of that in advance during the campaign, you will be less stressed. And let me tell you, that is a good thing. And this is true, again, whether you're doing it Kickstarter, whether you're doing a normal book launch, or whether just if you want a better life. So most people I know who are successful will batch their content. So there'll be weeks where they might just batch the whole month ahead in social media, that kind of thing. So I definitely do a lot of this. Let's talk about the challenges of launching a later book in the series. This is one of the reasons I was quite concerned about even doing a Kickstarter for Spear of Destiny. But I did want to do something new. I wanted to try and do something different for this launch. So I decided to do a separate cover for the Kickstarter. So this cover of Spear of Destiny, the silver foil, but also there's no running people on, and I have running people on the rest of the books in the series. So this was, in a way, it's terrible because all the marketing assets I won't be able to use again because this cover will never be available again. But equally, it does give a reason to back the campaign to get this special first edition. And it also, by doing the binge idea of the rest of the series, it does enable me to sell a lot more backlist books and enable the discovery of what is my longest series. So I have been marketing the earlier books in the series for the last few months. I mean, I always have promotions running on Stone of Fire. I might do free booksies. I've been running Facebook ads to the box set bundle on my Shopify store. So I've been doing other marketing. I've done some BookBub ads to the first in series to kind of get people into it. But yeah, I think tapping into this idea of binging is very interesting. And of course, if people buy the whole bundle, you can make quite a nice profit when you use services like Book Vault. You make much more money than you do on Amazon or Ingram, for example. I also write in a genre in thrillers where you can read them all as standalone. And this is true pretty much of all thrillers, is that each one can be read as a standalone story regardless. So I can market it as a standalone, but also as part of a series. I think you either know or you don't know whether you're interested in this kind of book. I do have a sort of recap, as in I'll explain what the Arcane Agency is and a bit about what's been happening with Morgan and all of this kind of thing. So people can read Spear of Destiny on its own, or they can binge the whole series. So there are both pros and cons of a later book in a series. Right, let's talk about email marketing, because this is so key for everything. Whatever you are doing, email marketing really is the most important thing. After the product itself, email is where you're going to rely heavily. So that's why we always emphasize building your email list as part of general book marketing. Is just, these are people who have opted in. I mean, never add anyone manually to your list, never buy a list, but these are people who've opted in to follow you, who are interested in you. So the first thing is to email multiple times. So I've been talking about the campaign for ages. Anyone who doesn't, it gets annoyed will unsubscribe. But remember, we pay for people on our list. I pay substantial amount of money, like hundreds of dollars a month for my email list. So I need them to buy. So I have two lists. I have a JF Penn list and I have a Creative Penn list. And I talk about different things to different people. So these two emails, the top one is my my JF Penn list. And the second one is my I think they're both, that's the same one. So essentially I'm explaining what is Kickstarter, because that's another thing. Many people still don't know how to use Kickstarter. So I did a video explaining how to use it, and then also a bit about the book. I also made sure that I can share different things in those emails. I did interviews, I've done these special audio things, and putting them out at different times so that you're not just saying the same thing over and over again in your email. So I'm not always going to use that headline. That's the kind of launch headline, but then I'm going to do different things in different emails. Also, I did ask for help on the podcast, and thriller author Luke Richardson, who writes in a similar genre, put me in his newsletter, which was wonderful. And so it is good to have email swaps as such with similar authors with a similar size list. But this is where it does get difficult, because you want to call in some favours, but you don't want to call in all the favours, depending on how many books you launch a year, what the project is it related? So make sure you think about that in advance, plan those emails, plan the content for those emails. And you can also use AI for this. You can use Chat or Claude. Yeah, this is Chat again, but the same thing works with Claude. So I essentially uploaded my book and I said, can you please help me with marketing for my book launch, Spear of Destiny, as attached? I'm launching it on Kickstarter with a special hardback foil edition, and I want to do some interviews about it. And I went into different sort of sub-questions. If the interview is aimed at authors and writing and publishing professionals, what are 15 questions I could answer about it? And then it's going to give you some questions. You can also then say, write me a first draft of the answers, which is super useful. Then I also said, one of the sites is bookbrunch.co.uk. What would interest their audience? Can you give me 20 questions that readers of action adventure thrillers might find interesting? So essentially, give me the questions and then you can say, write me a first draft of my answer, and that should help. I mean, anything to make this a faster process, I think, is a good idea. In terms of content marketing, I did do a couple of things. First of all, I did a listicle, a list of 30 action adventure archaeological thrillers that readers might like. And this is something to share on social media. I also sent it to some of the authors who I included, and I also am putting it in my JF Penn list. It's just another example of content marketing for readers. Then this is the BookBrunch article, which is a UK publishing site. Because they sponsored the award that I won for Pilgrimage, they asked me for an article on Pilgrimage. And I said, oh, any chance I could write an article on Spear of Destiny instead? So they said, yes, can we do both? And I was like, yes, of course. So I wrote that article and I did use that technique that I mentioned before. And that is the link to the article. So that I didn't pitch for that. It just came up. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could spin it in this direction. So that's something to keep in mind. If there are opportunities that come to you or you're going to make opportunities, how can you spin those towards your book? And what I did do for this was I used ChatGPT to tell me a bit more about the demographics of BookBrunch. So I said, please can you act as a book marketing copywriter and specialist? I am author JF Penn, also writing as Joanna Penn, and I'm doing a text interview on bookbrunch.co.uk about my next book launch. Can you tell me the audience psychographic for that site? And even though a psychographics is the interests that they have, and then basically it says, based on general knowledge, this is what I can find: professionally engaged in the book industry, literate, well-educated, tech-savvy, passion for storytelling, industry innovators. And so then I wrote the article, and based on some of the other things that I mentioned, and then I uploaded the article and I said, here's the finished article. Can you give me 10 headline options? This was super useful because headlines are always really hard. And you can see here that number 7, creating special editions and connecting with readers, JF Penn's Kickstarter strategy. Going back to the article, that is what I used. Creating special editions and connecting with readers is the headline. And I think that's actually a really good headline because it talks about Kickstarter and it is what publishing people are interested in. You can also do this content tailoring for fiction as well. Please act like a marketing expert. I need to work out my customer segments. I'm author JF Penn. Can you give me 10 customer segments for my books? And then it knows enough about JF Penn. I'm all over the internet. If you are a new author, then you can either use just your book blurb, you can use your genre, you can use, if you are comfortable uploading your book, but please read the terms and conditions. I'm comfortable, doesn't mean you are. So once you give it enough information, it will be able to do this. So what it's saying, or you could say, I'm like this author, and it can do it that way. But for me, this is completely true. Thriller enthusiasts, supernatural, paranormal, historical fiction. Although my books are not historical, they are all based on historical mysteries and things. Adventure seekers, mystery solvers, action lovers, spiritual and religious readers, women readers, audiobook listeners, global readers. So I think then what you can do is say, okay, I want to write something that targets those type of people, or I want to do an advert that targets those type of people, and it can give you ideas that relate to those specific market segments. I think this is something that we need to use a lot more, because in our minds we're kind of nebulous and we lose track. I do anyway. It's kind of chaotic. But if you can use ChatGPT or Claude to help you, it will give you more and more ideas for how you can reach people. So then, of course, because it's me, I had to do some podcast episodes around the launch. I have done tips for writing action adventure thrillers, which will either have gone out on the feed or will be going out shortly in terms of the Creative Penn podcast. I was also on Kevin Tumlinson's Wordslinger, and coincidentally, he also has a action adventure book 13 coming out. So we were able to talk about that and about book marketing and about Kickstarter and selling direct. And so that was a good conversation. Kevin and I have been around similar amount of time. I started before him, but he has written more in the action adventure niche. Also, I was on the ancientheroes.net site and Patrick's podcast talking about that too. So for both of those, they were video interviews. I've excerpted clips and putting those into social media as well. So if you can get some interviews, that is great. As a podcaster, I would say make sure you're pitching early enough to get those that will go out at the right time. People won't always be able to do that. It is better if you have relationships with the podcaster. So one example would be Thorne Coyle, who came on the show. I met Thorne like a decade ago, and when they reached out to me, I said, yeah, absolutely, we'll schedule it at the right time. Rachel Herron as well. People who are more likely to respond. And again, these are the longer term relationships that are important with every career. So then, as part of a podcast interview, it is very good to prepare in advance, especially if you're not so confident, or like me, you just really, really like to be very well prepared. So if I am doing an interview with a podcast, I will either, if they haven't given me questions, I'll think about the possible questions. But in this case, I actually gave some questions to Patrick and he used some of them. So you can really help podcasters by providing questions in advance. And this is how I did it. So again, I uploaded the book and I said, please can you help me answer some questions in preparation for a podcast interview? I am author J.F. Penn, and attached is Spear of Destiny, my next novel, with the author's note containing historical elements. I'm being interviewed on the Ancient Heroes podcast. Please can you help me by answering the following questions with a brief bullet point list under each that will help me during the interview. And I gave it the first two questions. What are the historical and mythical origins of the Spear of Destiny and its significance in ancient history? Now, of course, I know these answers because I did the research, but what I want is some bullet points quickly that I can just paste into a document so that I don't even have to type this out again. So this is super useful. Then how do you research your novels and make sure they're historically accurate? So again, having bullet points that I can then quickly put into a document like a crib sheet, and when I'm doing an interview, a video interview like this, I'll have that on the screen. Obviously can't be seen by the camera, but and I don't record my screen like this, but I have it there and I can just look at it, because sometimes it's just really hard to remember when you're in mid-flow. I don't know if that's like an age thing or whatever, but even fresh books in your mind, you can forget things, especially if you're nervous. Then the other thing I said is please help me with bullet points for this question based on my other arcane thrillers. This is book 13. You use biblical history and archaeology. What are some other elements of ancient history that the listeners might find interesting? So what I got it to do was go and analyse, and that's my series page on Amazon. And I only shared a little bit of it here, but essentially it went through my entire series and it pulled out elements of ancient history from the book descriptions that would be interesting, and I was able to weave that into the interview. You might enjoy this interview on the Ancient Heroes podcast. I go into all these exciting things, but it's so good to have a tool that can help you pull things out, because preparing for interviews should take time, and this can help you cut the amount of time. What I also did is, as I've done trips over the years, I use my booksandtravel.page site. I'm still blogging there. I'm not podcasting, but I still blog. So, for example, yesterday I put up one about Wells Cathedral. It gives me more content to send to my fiction readers. But also, when I do finally write books on things, I can go back in and edit the articles and use them again in my marketing. So for this one, I updated 2 articles. First of all, my Washington DC article, and at the time I didn't know what the book would be, so I added in there, this trip ended up inspiring Spear of Destiny, which features the Library of Congress and the Capitol. And so I went back in, updated that article. I'm going to reshare that in social media and to my email list. And then also the Vienna one, which I only did a few months ago, but again I uploaded some pictures and was able to link that to the campaign. So I always do this. I always have some content around my book research, but that was just a way to bring these up to date. And then I used the redirect link, so once the Kickstarter's over, then it will still direct to my sales page. For social media, I made about 25 different images, all different variations. You can see there's Noisette there with the book. There's the audiobook bundle, there's the historical one, there's my face. So I did all of this. I also use mockupshots.com. You can also use BookBrunch, canva.com. It's fantastic. And then I'm scheduling with buffer.com, as I mentioned. So it's really good to just create a ton of images. Some of them will be terrible, some of them will be super useful. And that is one way to do it, is to just create a load of them and then just use them all during the campaign, even if you think, oh, it's a bit naff. Like, I don't really like that arcane audio one. I think I could do a better job of that. But what it does show you is you can get the entire series in audio, which is the first time I've ever offered that. So yeah, I mean, just create a ton of them, different kinds, and use them all, see what happens. One of the other images is the Trope image, which you will have seen around, no doubt, which is the book cover and then some elements of the tropes around the edge. So evil Nazis and demonic rites, tainted bloodlines, fast-paced action thriller, race against time to save a loved one, supernatural relic with a bloody past, romantic tension and unspoken feelings, and rebirth of a dark legend. That gives you some ideas about what's in Spear of Destiny. And you can use canva.com to do that. That's what I use. And I also put these into my Shopify page. Now, if you need help listing the tropes and you're happy uploading the book to the services, you can use ChatGPT or Claude.ai. If you have no access to Claude.ai, you can use poe.com, Poe.com. And the prompt that I use is, please act as an expert in story tropes for thrillers or whatever your genre is. Please analyse the attached book. And again, you have to be happy to upload it. Give me a list of 10 plot tropes in the book. Then, okay, give me a list of 10 or 20 emotional tropes in the book, then character tropes in the book, and then rephrase as you like and go through that way and then pick the ones you want to use. So hopefully that will give you some ideas. I also had a book photo shoot with Kate Hennessy, who is a photographer and also an author, recommended by Sacha Black, who used Kate for her images for her Kickstarter. And I really love these images. I think they're gorgeous. Kate uses a combination of real things and also AI images. I think they look fantastic. I'll be using them in social media. I use them in the updates. Just any way to get more visuals into the process, I think, is good. Obviously, with books, it's more about the story, but with Kickstarter, it is about the finished product, and the book itself is a product. I always make a Pinterest board. I don't know how much use this is, but hey, everything helps. And I enjoy adding my images into Pinterest. Those articles that I did can all just be added in, and then I've added some of those images from Kate. I haven't used Pinterest ads. I keep thinking I want to try them, but I haven't yet. I've went into the back end yesterday and found I hadn't set up all the right things, so I might not be able to do it on this one, but I think it might be worth playing with, especially with the more visual style of the books. What I have done is Facebook ads, and I did go through Steve Piper's click testing process. Now, Steve will be on the show next week as I record this. So depending on when you're listening, he will be on the show 10th of June 2024. And I'll also have another video on this. If you want to see Steve's click testing course, you can go to thecreativeben.com/click testing. That is my affiliate link. And what I did is I tested some of the taglines, and what I have now done once it's live is I tested the images with the same click testing technique. And as I said, I will put some of this in a separate video on click testing that will go with Steve's episode. But what you're doing is essentially running them for putting loads of images up, putting loads of text up, and then measuring it based on a certain number of impressions. Again, I'll do that in a separate video, but I wanted to include it in this because I did use, again, chat. I said, please act as an expert in meta marketing and book marketing and copywriting for ads, particularly for action adventure thrillers. Please analyze the attached book and give me a list of 15 taglines that will make readers want to click. So you can see there's a whole load of things. I ended up, I think, with about 50. I actually think this one is Claude, but I did both Claude and ChatGPT, and I just kept repeating the same process. So give me 15 taglines that emphasize character, give me 15 taglines that emphasize plot, 15 taglines for thriller readers, and then tested those iterations. These are some of the images I also tested. So this is the chat version. The previous one was Claude. This is the chat version. And you can see I kind of keep going back 15 more for characters, emotional hooks that I could put on a movie poster. So you can see how the prompting works for this kind of thing. So here are the actual images that I ran for the main ad. And you can see the top one there is 5.18% click-through rate compared to the bottom one. And this is what's so funny, right? You have to test this stuff because the spear, the one at the bottom called Book Spear, is one of the ones I paid for from Kate. It's a professional picture, and you can see it converted at 0.57%, which is just not worth running. But this top one, the background, converted at 5.18%. So I'm absolutely going to keep running that. I thought my face might go higher, but again, it didn't perform as well as the book background, so that's the one I'm using. But the tagline there is the one that tested the best as well. So if you're interested in the Facebook testing, check the video that I will do next week and Steve Piper's episode. Then, of course, I am still using X, or old Twitter, at The Creative Pen, and I have been more active on there for the last few months. I went off the boil a bit around Christmas, but now I'm really back into it. One of the nice things that you can also do, and I think is important, is tagging Kickstarter, so at Kickstarter and at Kickstarter Read. You can also, what have I done there? Oh, the BookBrunch one, I tagged them. So you can really show people that you are sharing these things when you tag them. You can also do this on Instagram. You can do this on other sites. I'm sure they're on TikTok and all of that kind of thing. But you want them to know that you're making an effort. But these are some examples of some of my posts on X. And yeah, again, I do them every single day, most of which are scheduled. Book trailer. I did make a book trailer, and again I used this one is Claude. Please can you act as an expert in book trailers for thriller novels that make people want to click and buy? Give me ideas for images and words for a 30-second book trailer for the attached book Spear of Destiny. So much of this is useful if you can and are happy to upload your book as a little paperclip. I've shown you how to do a book trailer in a previous video. This is the same prompt for chat, and I used a sort of variety of both of these. I'm not going to go into it in detail. You can have a look at the book trailer that I did. It's on YouTube Shorts, and also, and I made it in different sizes. I need to post the mobile one. But also the how to make a book trailer video, which has a lot more detail about how you can do it. So that might be interesting for you. I also really love Descript.com. Now I use it for the podcast, but you can also use it for videos. And you can get templates. So there's 4 little squares at the top. If you click that, if you're in Descript, it gives you templates. So for videos, for audiograms, for whatever you want. And very good for editing video. So that's Descript.com. Obviously it is a premium thing. So good for if you're doing lots of them. And I used that to excerpt the videos from the various interviews I did, which I need to post. I haven't posted them yet as I record this, but I have excerpted them all and tidied them up and all of that kind of thing. So I found that a very useful tool for video editing. And as ever, I always have more ideas to do around video. So here, for example, I'd like to do a reader Q&A article based on the attached book. What are 20 questions readers might ask or want to know? And I still may do this as I record this. I haven't done it. Obviously, I don't particularly enjoy doing video. I much prefer doing this kind of video because I'm helping you, and that just is useful. But the questions here, I might do some videos on, or I might do a live or something like that. But I use ScreenFlow. So right now I'm using ScreenFlow, which records the screens. You can also obviously record on your phone. You can use canva.com to edit video. Well, you can use it to make the videos. It's got loads of templates. You can use CapCut. There are loads of tools that you can do. But again, do as much in advance as you can. Video particularly takes ages to edit. Well, it does for me. If you're more used to doing video, you'll probably be fine. But I guess I wanted to show you that you can use these AI tools to help you with ideas to prepare the videos in advance. So I know this seems like a lot of work. And what is interesting is, I've said this before, but I think I was getting lazy with my marketing. All I was doing when I finished a novel or, a short story or anything is I would just release it and I would send an email, maybe stick a few Facebook ads on and announce it on the podcast. And that was it. And so what this does, doing a Kickstarter or doing a book launch phase, actually deciding that for these 2 weeks or these 3 weeks, I'm going to do a launch period, it actually really does focus your mind and helps you give your book the best boost it can get. Now, launching is hard work. If you go with a traditional publisher, you'll also need to do this. It's not like you can opt out of marketing. It is not optional. You have to do marketing. So I think you have to consider it as a campaign spike. That's what I'm thinking, which is I go hard for a few weeks and then I can just get back to writing and I can get back to everything else. More passive marketing, just the general life of like email marketing and all that kind of thing. The other thing is you can consider it as preparing marketing assets for the life of your book. Now, generally you can reuse images and ads and all that. Now, I've been using the wrong book cover, so that might not work for me, but I can swap out the book cover later on. But I feel like it is worth putting the effort in order to give your book the best boost it can, whether or not you're doing Kickstarter. But it's almost like you have to adjust your mindset to, look, if it's not optional, if I have to do this, what am I going to do that will be creative? I think you can see that a lot of this is creative. Lean on the AI tools to make it easier for you, and put some effort in for sure. Right, so we've come to the end of this and I'm recording this still mid-campaign. That is a screenshot of where I am now, 14 days to go. I have hit my goal, so I'm really thrilled about that. It's not going as fast as the non-fiction, but that doesn't really surprise me. But yes, if you want to join me for the Discovery Writing, the Pantsing webinar, Taming the Chaos and writing your book, just writing it rather than plotting, several people have asked me about that. Now, if you don't want the book Spear of Destiny, what you can do is just buy the ebook, which is just £5, and add on the webinar. So with Kickstarter, you can buy the smallest thing and then add on bigger things. So you can add on the webinar if you fancy doing that. But as ever, you can leave any questions or comments below the video. Let me know if you found this useful for your marketing, regardless of whether you're doing a Kickstarter or not. Have you got some ideas for this? And of course, if you want to check out the campaign, it's at jfpenn.com/destiny. As ever, thank you so much for your support, and I hope you found this useful. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.